Morning, everyone. Morning. Welcome back to the webinar. Hope you had a good break. And we're in 2024, 1st of February. We're going to be talking about technology today. But before that, let's give you a little kind of market and geopolitical update. And listen, last year was much better in equity markets than we thought. Let me show you a chart. It was led by the US equity market. You can see here the S&P 500 hitting all-time highs, almost as we speak, although it came off a little last night, around 4,800. So the US has been very strong and has really led the world in terms of equity market performance over the last few years. And really led as well by what's become called the Magnificent Seven. You can see this chart. This is 2023, the Magnificent Seven. So Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Nvidia, chipmaker, Google and Meta, up 125% last year, up 125%. Rest of the market up fairly nicely, but not 125%. So a very concentrated market, which means that the Magnificent Seven, these seven stocks, are now give or take, well over $10 trillion in market cap. So bigger collectively than any other stock market, any other country's stock market, aside from the US. And you can see they're bigger than China, bigger than Japan. So very, very concentrated market. Which means that the US has become, by far and away, the most expensive market in the world. This shows you the price earnings ratio for the US versus the rest of the world. Price earnings ratio, a common measure of valuation. And the price earnings ratio of the United States is 8 times that of the rest of the world, which is quite extraordinary on this measure. This means that the US, compared to, say, Chinese equities, this chart shows you the US since kind of the post-COVID recovery is up another 50%, 50. The Chinese equity market has halved, more than halved over that period. So you're getting very big dichotomy between the US and the rest of the world now, which tends to be, a bit of a tricky sign, particularly when, the world does seem to be slowing down. This is money supply. M2 money supply now firmly negative. You tend to see that when you head into a recession. I've been talking about this for a little while. Maybe we'll see a recessionary period in 2024. Certainly things are slowing down, which when markets are at these kinds of valuations, it makes one a little bit nervous. And profits in the face of a recession seem to be coming down, kind of as well. So this chart shows you fourth quarter earnings per share, which are profits. So the NASDAQ 100, the tech market, are up. Fourth quarter profits are up in technology shares, about 3%. The rest of the market, S&P 500, are down, give or take 12 or 13% in the fourth quarter. And if you take the Magnificent Seven I referred to earlier, or the Magnificent Six, excluding Tesla, having a slightly tougher time, their profits up 50%. And the rest of the market is down 12%. So a very kind of strange and concentrated market at the moment. And all the time inflation kind of keeps on going up. I mean, inflation rates have come down, peaked at around 8-9% in the States. They're now kind of 3-4%, still not 2%. But even 3 or 4% is an increase in prices. So if you take the price level compared to when we started this inflationary episode, prices are up 20% in the United States and in other parts of the developed world. So people are really feeling the pinch. And this is a political problem for Joe Biden heading into the election this year. I enjoyed this tweet from the Babylon Bee, which is a kind of a sardonic kind of tweeting service. Quote unquote, White House assures inflation is only affecting people who need to buy stuff. So they're playing down inflation, but people know, and they're having a very tough time. A lot of people are having a very tough time in the face of higher prices, and that's difficult for Biden into an election year. What's also difficult is what's happening geopolitically. I've talked about this quite a lot. The Middle East is the latest difficult area, and particularly the Suez Canal and the Red Sea. Houthi rebels in Yemen, who control Yemen, by the way, are causing disruption to global shipping through the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal takes about between 12 and 15% of world trade. So, at the margin, that's big. And if you don't go through the Red Sea, you have to go all around the Cape Horn of Africa. So it takes between a third and 50% longer to get from China. So a problem for world trade, and a problem for costs, and potentially a problem for pricing. You can see here the Houthi rebels merrily purloining the Galaxy Leader commercial cargo ship. I mean, these cargo ships are pretty easy pickings when you're well armed, and you're armed, dare I say, by Iran, as the Houthi rebels would appear to be. So ship crossings to the Suez Canal are down. What is that? Down like 70%. I mean, you can't get insurance. That's the problem if you're sailing through the Suez Canal right now. So they're going the other route, which means that they're more expensive. The Shanghai Containerized Freight Index has doubled in a very short space of time. Shipping costs are not as high as they were through the COVID disruption and the COVID pandemic. So you can see, the Shanghai Containerized Freight Index. This is the cost of shipping from Shanghai into Europe. Peaked at around 5,000 at the worst of the COVID disruption, because COVID disruption was everywhere, not just one choke point. So that was up from 1,000 to 5,000. This time it's gone from 1,000 to about 2,500, maybe 3,000. So not as bad as COVID for sure, but still worrying when we've got inflation in the system anyway. And I was quite startled a little bit by this. The US military in the Middle East, talking about potential escalation of the current various conflicts in the Middle East, including Gaza, obviously. 45,000 troops, US troops, are present in the Middle East. The UK just sent one of its 2 aircraft carriers down there. So there are now 2 aircraft carrier groups in the Middle East, in the US and the UK. The US has nuclear-powered submarines patrolling the region. And you get a sense of what the flashpoint could be in this area, because just in the last few days, the conflict looks like it may be extending. The US needs to, or probably will, retaliate against Iranian-backed actions, and maybe directly against Iran. And that's a whole new ballgame. So it's a very concerning situation right now in terms of what might happen in the Middle East, and support for, can I call it, the Arab cause is widespread in the Middle East, and anti-US rhetoric is clearly inflamed. This is a Houthi rally in Yemen. I think there were 300,000 or 500,000 people on the streets. So this is not kind of isolated rebel actions. These are big populations who are very angry with what is going on. So you don't snub those out with a couple of drone strikes against terrorist actions. So this could become a little difficult. So let's keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, the other side of the world, I talked about the Taiwanese elections just in the last couple of weeks. President Xi in China, ahead of those elections, took his New Year message to sound a warning to Taiwan. Taiwan is still very much seen as being part of China, within China, and put a shot across the bows of Taiwan to toe the line. Now, they didn't in the election. They did not in the election, and the winner of the election in Taiwan was the DPP. And the DPP is very much anti-China, and China's considering, I guess, its response to that at a time when the US is distracted in other parts of the world. And then for China, in terms of its expansion, continues apace. This chart is interesting. It shows you imports from Russia into China and into India. And you can see that those imports from Russia into China have gone from 4 billion a month to give or take 11 billion a month in the last, 4 or 5 years, maybe 3 or 4 years. And in India, even more stock. It's gone from $1 billion a month to $5 billion a month. So India and China and Russia and Iran and Saudi are doing a lot more trade together outside of the old dollar bloc. And this chart shows you the shift to the Chinese local currency, the renminbi, over this period. And you can see that when you started the Belt and Road Initiative, there's the New Silk Road I've been talking about, the BRI, about 8 or 9 years ago, 90% of loan finance from China into these countries, 90% was dollar-based. Okay? Loans in dollars. Today, dollar-based is down to 40%, and renminbi-based is north of 50%. So the majority of loans are now being done in renminbi. So the dollar's been marginalized from the big growing parts of the world economy. Meanwhile, China, and some people might have missed this, I mean, the Chinese economy is having a tough time in terms of its property sector, but other parts of the economy are being ramped up aggressively. So manufacturing exports in passenger cars, most of these electric vehicles, by the way, where BYD, the largest electrical vehicle manufacturer now in the world, is overtaking Tesla. But Chinese exports of vehicles has gone from 500,000 units just 3 years ago to almost 4.5 million units. Whilst Germany, Japan, South Korea, US are left in its wake. So China is now the largest exporter of passenger cars globally from nowhere. And this is happening in the green economy, it's happening in rare earths, it's happening in quantum computing, you name it, technology. So China's ramping up its industrial base very aggressively. And part of that is military power. And this is an interesting chart because it combines your military spending with your population. So your manufacturing GDP multiplied by your manufacturing GDP per working age population. So it takes into account how many people you've got to deploy in your army. And you can see that the US and China are almost equal now in terms of that kind of applied military power. So the US and China are equal on that measure. So the military might of China is something to be reckoned with now. And we're heading in this geopolitical world where China's rising, they're walking into a world of Trump. And Donald Trump won very easily the Republican caucus in Iowa and in New Hampshire, leaving Nikki Haley in his wake. And that's the first time a Republican candidate has won both the Republican primaries from the get-go. So Trump is absolutely dominant in the Republican caucuses. And this will come to a head Super Tuesday, which is early April from memory. There'll be another Republican primary kind of mid-March. So this is going to, I mean, Trump is done anyway, but this will be confirmed in the next month or so. And certainly from Biden's point of view, he said that Trump is his opponent. So get ready and Trump is ahead in the polls. And I'm saying this because, we need to get used to the reality of Donald Trump as being our next president, in my opinion. So I'll certainly become accustomed to it. And I've talked a lot about this, and you can read my previous newsletters in terms of what he's likely to do. And don't believe the CNN lazy journalism, quote unquote, we don't know what he's going to do. Look at his website and you can read it. Or you can look at my newsletters. So that's going to be a very different world geopolitically, rising China, and against the Donald Trump. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so that's your kind of market and geopolitical roundup. Let's talk about technology. And I want to talk about the technologies that are impacting us today, which we may not be focused on, but are already becoming part of our lives, or will become part of our lives very quickly. Here's a quiz for you to get you going. I've talked about exponential change a lot. For those who've missed it, here's a quiz for you to ask your teenage children, or if your teenage children watching, for you to ask your parents. And the quiz is, I will give you either $1 per day for the next 30 days, or I'll give you 1 cent a day growing exponentially for the next 30 days. So doubling each day. 1 cent, which is 1/100th of a dollar. So $1 a day for 30 days, you get $30. Or you get 1 cent a day growing, doubling every day. And almost everyone says $30. But 1 cent per day, doubling every day for 30 days, would give you $10 million. So that's the effect of exponential change, which is why we find it very difficult to grasp. And what's happening this decade is a number of these technological changes, and technology grows exponentially, are converging and interlinking, and therefore accelerating that acceleration. And a great example is autonomous vehicles. And if you take an autonomous vehicle, like this Waymo, which is the Google vehicle, which now is a fully electric, fully autonomous, no driver vehicle, robotaxi, operating across San Francisco as we speak. So again, a technology which is affecting us today. Autonomous vehicles, that's a configuration of the progression in lithium battery technology to allow this electrical propulsion to happen. LiDAR technology, which is the radar sitting on top of the vehicle, the cameras which go everywhere, and LiDAR technology. Radar is radio waves, which bounce back off objects. LiDAR is laser, and laser projections which hit objects and bounce back. And the time it takes to bounce back gives you an idea of your spatial surroundings in 3 dimensions. So the car can see around it the entire time, which allows it to drive autonomously. Combined with artificial intelligence, and it's the AI which really makes this thing tick. So that configuration, lithium batteries, LiDAR, and AI, has allowed autonomous vehicles to hit our streets much faster than any of us, I think, frankly, expected. So across San Francisco, you can hail a autonomous robotaxi from Phoenix Airport. They're rolling them out in Los Angeles. And it turns out they are, according to these stats, based on 7 million miles of driving around, 85% reduction in injury rates compared to humans. I mean, human-caused road traffic accidents remain the largest killer worldwide. 1.6 million people die each year from road traffic accidents. 1.6 million. So we look back in 10 years' time and wonder why we allow people to drive around in these crazy, dangerous objects. Autonomous cars are much safer. And trucking corridors, or self-driving, I should say, autonomous trucks corridors are now being opened in the Austin area in Texas. So again, you'll see a truck driving with no driver. Tesla is big in this. And electric flying taxis, another variant of that vehicle technology. This was tested. This is dated November. Joby, which is a very well-funded electric air taxi company, is now flying in New York City. So you'll be able to fly from New York to JFK Airport, which usually takes about an hour and a half in a car, in 6 minutes. So these flying taxis are active in Dubai and New York today, coming our way. And by the way, the number one selling car in 2023 wasn't the Ford F-150 anymore, the pickup, or Bucky. It was this car, the Tesla Y, which sold 1.23 million units last year. So an electric vehicle was the largest selling car in 2023, which I thought was pretty interesting. So that's one example. The second example would be artificial intelligence. AI exploded into our lives with ChatGPT last year, so this is affecting our lives already. Ray Kurzweil, who's one of the pioneers of this, I guess, computer revolution, and predicted the effect of exponential change on all our lives many years ago, and wrote a book called The Singularity is Near, and set up the Singularity University, from which a lot of my slides come. Ray Kurzweil, 2029 is the date I predicted when AI will achieve human levels of intelligence, 2029. That's going to happen sooner. Elon Musk, it's going to happen by 2025. That sounded like a long way away, but now, of course, it's, 9 months away, 11 months away, next year. So machines will be smarter than us by next year. And that's going to affect our lives in very profound ways in the next 12 months. And I could have picked many examples, one of which will be personalized AI agents. So this is your personal concierge service. So you take your little AI bot, you train it, which means you say what kind of voice you'd like to have, what kind of access you'd like it to have, what kind of language you'd like it to use. You just tell it what it wants to do. It'll do the code. You can then give it access to whatever you like in your life. This is happening now, by the way. Your calendar, your email, as much or as little as you want, your email, your social media accounts, your movements via your calendar. It'll track your movements on your phone, obviously, your bank accounts, if you'd like to. And then the AI agent or assistant will predict what you want to do next. It'll say, you're going to need an Uber in 10 minutes. It's ordered. Or I've booked that restaurant for you because I know you like it on a Wednesday night. So AI assistants are coming our way, which is speaking in our ears in the next 12 months. And by the way, are available now in the US. Then one which caught my eye just came out in, I think, November last year, maybe December. In Denmark, they use this kind of technology as a predictive tool for life events. So AI works off algorithmic technology, which is if-then technology. If this happens, then this is likely to happen. So predictive is where ChatGPT gets its predictive words from. It can predict what word you're likely to use next. In this, they predict what life event is likely to happen next, based on your previous experience and your lifestyle, your bank account, your movements, in time, your blood rate, what your body's doing. And they took the whole population of Denmark and used it to predict death rates. Very helpful for insurance companies. A bit morbid, but their ability to predict when you will die becomes very accurate. So your AI bot may be able to tell you, okay, well, you know, about the probabilities you've got 10 years to go, or 20 years to go, or 5 years to go, whatever it is. And it'll likely happen here, so you might want to avoid that area of the world. Yeah, heavy stuff. ChatGPT 5, we've had 3 and 4. ChatGPT 4 from OpenAI cost $100 million to train. ChatGPT 5 will cost billions and billions of dollars to train. And ChatGPT 5 will be exponentially more powerful than 4 and will do extraordinary things. That'll come and hit us probably later this year, I would expect. So look out for that. And it's possible we run out of data to train these models. They put, let me get this right, I think 11,000 romantic novels into the Google AI system to encourage it to speak in a kind and soft language. For example, there's only so much data to go around, and that's a question mark in terms of how AI will develop in terms of real life data as opposed to synthetic data. Although, kind of the last one on AI, I could have talked about AI the entire time, but I'm not going to. And the Apple Vision Pro launches tomorrow. There you go, February the 2nd, the Apple Vision Pro. This is the spatial computing, AI-driven, a different world within these glasses, which allows you to inhabit metaverse-like. And the metaverse is coming. I'm not going to cover that today, but I could have talked a lot about that. Apple Vision Pro will be another Apple product, I think, which people say won't be a big deal and will be an enormous deal and will pave the way for the metaverse. And that is happening from tomorrow. All right, next section. Let's talk about robots, also happening now. I put it on the heading, but I wanted to make it a quiz. What are these numbers? It's the number of robots, and those of you who are listening and are not looking, the number of robots employed by a company through time. 2013 was 1,000. 2014, 2017, 15,000, 100,000, 200,000 robots, 350,000 robots, 520,000 robots, 750,000 robots in 2023. So 750,000 robots are employed by, and the answer is Amazon. Amazon employs the second largest employer in the world. It employs 1.5 million people. Only Walmart is bigger, 2 million people. Foxconn, by the way, who make your Apple phone, employ 1 million people. So 1.5 million people and 750,000 robots at Amazon now. I mean, that is just extraordinary. Like these little guys. You can watch videos, they carry stuff around. You know, they know where the stuff is, they go get it, they carry it back, they put it in your Amazon box, and off they go. So robotic technology has exploded in the last year or so. And I'd encourage you to watch videos of this because they're coming to a workplace near you. And Tesla inevitably is kind of leading the charge in this kind of thing. Or one of those leading the charge. The Tesla Generation 2 humanoid robot was launched last month. Again, look at the videos. It's an extraordinary thing. Looks very human. Good in the gym, does squats, runs around, happy. Can grab an egg. It's got the tactile sensing thing on its fingers. It can manipulate the egg, not break it. And do all kinds of interesting things in a manufacturing capacity like this. Remy Robotics is opening a robot-run restaurant. So no humans, just robots in New York today called Better Days. It's well-funded. It's $1 billion company. It's rolling out 30 of these restaurants across the United States as we speak. And you walk in and you'll order from your robot on your little screen where it is, and it'll prepare your meal for you. So robotics coming our way very quickly now. And you can also use it to get around better. This is an interesting kind of hypershell, kind of bionic suit. Gives you one horsepower on your back or through your limbs somehow. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's a tactile hypershell. Gives you 1 horsepower, which gives you bionic powers. It allows you to offset 30 kilograms of weight. So you can pick up 30 kilograms, which is a third of me, as if it's nothing. And it allows you to run up hills in a bionic type way. So again, this is available now. So robotics is going to hit our exercise regimes now and in South Africa within the next year or so. How we eat. Okay, this is a Michelin-starred restaurant which served chicken, which was grown from stem cells. So these are not veggie burgers made of vegetable stuff. These are burgers, chicken or meat, made from the stem cells of animals. If you don't grow the animal and butcher it, you take a stem cell out of it and you grow it in the laboratory. And these are available now. So stem cell meat could transform the meat industry and is, of course, indeed, again, available now. And will transform that industry in the next 5 years beyond all recognition, in my view. And let's move on to humans. CRISPR technology. The first CRISPR, I've been talking about CRISPR for a while. So this is gene editing. We're all made of genes. And CRISPR is the technology which takes a strand of your DNA, your genes, a strand of your DNA, and edits it, takes it out and puts a fresh one in. So a cancerous gene gets taken out and replaced by a healthy gene. So you're injected with the protein, it jumps onto your DNA strand and does that editing for you. So you can solve almost any disease. This is very advanced now. And the first one just got approved by the UK 2 months ago and by the US last month. And it's to solve something called sickle cell disease. I have to confess I don't know what that is. But CRISPR technology is now active in humans in the last 2 months. Absolutely extraordinary. They've been doing it on birds, on animals for a long time. These are super chickens, CRISPR engineered super chickens who are resistant to bird flu. So they put flu into a bunch of chicks. Half were genetically engineered by CRISPR, half were not. Half of them died of flu, the other half were totally fine. Okay, that's got implications. The first CRISPR-based gene editing therapy to lower cholesterol for humans, happening now. Would you like lower cholesterol? Get a CRISPR gene edit to solve it. Happening now. I'd like some of that. Personal healthcare, wearables are going to be massive, already are. These are wearables you attach to your body, and they will do what your doctor does with a stethoscope, but full time, and can listen to the sounds in your body, which tell you a lot about what the body's doing full time. And that'll go into an app on your phone, and it'll alert you to things like heart attack. It'll say, okay, your body's sounding strange. You're due to have a heart attack. You better do something about it sharpish, and that'll come up on the app on your phone. Available now. Or you can go to the mall. This is an interesting company, raised $350 million at a $1.5 billion valuation. It's a hub available in your shopping mall. You go in, you have a full blood test. You sit in front of a screen to do the scan. This is the very enjoyable, comfy box you sit in front of, and you get diagnosed. You get a diagnosis based on the full scan. That's being rolled out in America right now. So personalized medicine, taking control of your health, is becoming massive. All right. Yeah, on to the last leg. This is interesting. So let's move into space. Human spaceflight, making life multiplanetary. This is SpaceX website. And the Starship, which is the latest evolution of Elon Musk's SpaceX range, which is an extraordinary range of rockets. Starship is the one which will head to Mars. And it's up for its third test this month, February this year. The first test went well, second test didn't, third test we're hoping will go well. And the plan is to go to Mars. And when Elon Musk first said this, we thought he was science fiction. Mars is 500 million kilometers away, so 500 million kilometers away, quite a long way. But this Starship is being built and works and can carry 100 people in spacesuits like this one with 3D printed helmets, etc. Very lightweight, straightforward spacesuits. It'll carry 100 people, take off from Starbase, which I think is in Texas from memory, from the SpaceX headquarters, with another one. So the Starship will go into lower orbit and will be refueled at a refueling depot by other Starships carrying fuel, and then we'll go on to the moon or to Mars. And 500 million kilometers to Mars will take 7 months in Starship with these 100 people, and they will get to Mars and they will land. And Elon Musk is building many dozens and ultimately many hundreds of Starships. There's being manufactured now, and they will fly to Mars and set up bases. I'll be interested to see how exactly they set up the base, but it'll be based on 3D printing technology, which I'll get to in a second. And this will be the arrival. So Mars is coming within reach, no doubt, in my mind, within the next few years. And SpaceX is driving it, and Starship is the one to keep an eye on. So take a look at that test coming this month. I'll try and flag it in my explainers, because it's very, very exciting. And it'll become even quicker. So 7 months is quite a long time to be stuck in a Starship. Helicity Space just raised money for a fusion engine development. So fusion engines in space propulsion would be 1,000 times faster than existing rockets, 1,000 times faster. So you'd get to Mars really quick, whatever that would be. Now, fusion technology is complicated and not imminent, but, exponential progress, it may be quicker than we think. So fusion technology is going to drive space exploration and that journey to Mars much, much quicker. So good for Elon Musk and good for SpaceX, and it'll get us to Mars. And by the way, this also will enable exploration of space in terms of mineral technology and ultimately building things in space. Again, I talked about this, and I'll come back onto that in a second when I talk about 3D printing. Very interesting area. But finally, on space for now, or penultimately rather, Japan landed on the moon last week. We talked about Russia doing it, China doing it, the US not doing it yet, actually, apart from 50 years ago. India landing on the moon, the south side of the moon, the really hard bit to land on, the south side of the moon, the dark bit. When was that? About 3 months ago. And Japan have now done it. Unfortunately, the spacecraft landed upside down, which must have been terribly disappointing. And here it is upside down. And its solar panels are on its roof, so it can't really charge itself. But it did wake up and it did charge a little bit, so it's collecting samples, etc. But the interesting thing about the technology is it was able to land within a 50-meter or 100-meter radius, kind of a very targeted landing zone, which they haven't been able to do on the moon before. So they can target the spot very accurately now using this new technology. But they, landing the right way up would have been even better. And then finally from space, this actually came from the University of Swansea in Wales, which is close to my heart. 6 years of testing of solar farming in space. So it turns out the total amount of energy used by humans on Earth in a year can be harvested in 1 hour from solar power in space. So that's pretty extraordinary. It would take a lot of solar farms, but the amount of solar energy hitting Earth in space in 1 hour equals the total amount of energy we use in a year. So if you can capture it and harvest it and beam it down through lasers, which is the idea, it turns out this works. They just announced this, I think, last month. So they've been testing for 6 years where they can actually harvest this solar power and beam it to Earth, and it works. Interesting. And it'd be good if it works, because we've got a problem with energy in terms of our carbon emissions. And this caught my attention: carbon removal. So reduce fossil fuels, yes. Build out renewables, yes, but also remove carbon from the atmosphere. So this is the first one really I've seen at any kind of scale. A carbon removal factory in California is up and running, and they're looking to roll these out quite aggressively. So carbon removal is now today becoming a thing, which was, again, kind of science fiction 2 or 3 years ago. So that's very good news. And it needs to be good news because to get to a net zero world, i.e. net zero carbon emissions, by 2050, which is the target, that's only 25 years away. we need to spend $110 trillion. This figure caught my attention, $110 trillion. So that's the total GDP of the world in 1 year spent just on decarbonizing over the next 25 years. $110 trillion. That's an extraordinary number. I suspect it'll be less because technology will drive it lower, but that's a big deal. You see building construction there. Half of the cost, half of the so $500 million on building. So a big chunk of this problem comes from construction. So I think the stat would be, let me get this right, 40% of carbon dioxide emissions currently come from the construction industry, which is extraordinary. And we'll come back to 3D printing in a second. But before we do that, brain interface, and accelerate a little bit. I've got about 5 or 10 minutes left. Okay. Park that. We'll come back to 3D printing and carbon reduction. But in the meantime, brain interface technology, extraordinary. Again, happening now. This is a lady called Pat Bennett, seated. She had a stroke, unable to speak. And you can see she's plugged in, her brain is plugged in to the computer. This is Stanford University. And she is able to convey her brain thoughts into actual speech through the computer. And she can speak 62 words per minute. So a word per second, 62 words per minute, with a vocabulary of 125,000 words, with a brain interface through the computer. That blows your mind. And that's been proven, just happened now in the last, I'm going to say 3 to 5 months. So brain interfaces in terms of being able to communicate with the outside world if you can't, and or control parts of your body which you've lost control of, is becoming a reality. And this gentleman, amazing, had Parkinson's disease for 30 years from quite a young age, unable to walk, paralyzed, because it's a brain physical interface which is the core of the Parkinson's disease, which stops your brain communicating properly with your limbs. So it's a brain problem. And the implant, which actually went on top of his spine, in terms of a way to his brain to recommunicate with his limbs, works. And this is him. He's able to walk again. It's literally a miracle. And he hasn't been able to walk for 30 years, and he can now walk around because he has a brain implant which allows his brain to communicate again with his limbs. Extraordinary steps being taken in this area. And just last week, actually this week, Elon Musk, again, his Neuralink business, which is a brain interface business, so that they put an implant into your brain, which knits into the fabric of your brain, which allows your brain to communicate better with your limbs and the rest of your body, and also the internet, which is where we fuse with technology and fuse with the digital age. Neuralink implanted the first brain chip into a human this week. And it works. Turns out it works. And the neurons are spiking in the way they hoped it would, and the brain is now interfacing with its body in a better way and solving these dreadful conditions, like Alzheimer's, like Parkinson's disease, etc. But ultimately, it'll allow you to plug into the internet full time, and we become cyborgs. Happened this week. Finally, 3D printing. Sounds a bit arcane to finish on 3D printing, but I think it's pretty interesting. This is a house in Guatemala. This is a 3D printing machine, and they printed this house out of concrete in 26 hours, and it can withstand a 9 magnitude earthquake. And the good thing about it is, as I said, 3D printing of construction will bring down that 40% of carbon dioxide emissions in construction materially, literally materially. So that 3D printing is happening very much now and is going to make a huge impact on our carbon footprint, which no one's really talking about yet. And to finish on 3D printing, 2 interesting things. Number 1, 3D printing in space will allow these big space voyages to happen. It's already happening. So you can 3D print objects from your Starship on the way to Mars, and it'll use minerals from asteroids and from the moon, which are rich in the rare earths and the iron ore, etc. you need to construct things. So you'll mine in space and 3D print in space and construct in space. Can do that now. And then finally, this kind of blew my mind, a 3D printer which works inside your body to repair things. So let's say you've got a broken bone. You can 3D print using effectively like sonar. So waves which come from the outside in, hits a gel which is attached to your bone, and 3D prints a new bone within your body without any invasion. So this really is science fiction, where, you know, the Star Trek guy kind of waves a thing across your body and fixes you inside. Now happening. Okay, well, that was a lot, and hopefully you found that kind of as extraordinary as I did. It's very interesting research to get up to speed on that again. So these are things happening today, which are only going to exponentially improve and get better and better and better, quicker than we think, and our next decade is going to be the most extraordinary thing we've ever seen. So, as ever, do engage with it, do get Googling, and enjoy the next decade, because I'm very excited about it. And life longevity, I've talked about. You know, CRISPR technology, I didn't even mention CRISPR technology, as well as lowering cholesterol, will be able to get to the point where we can anti-age ourselves, so we can get younger through CRISPR technology. And Peter Diamandis, the co-founder of Singularity University with Ray Kurzweil, his massive transformational mission is to move the average health span, not lifespan, but health span, the average health span across the world to 120 years on average within the next decade. So we will all on average live to 120, not 70 or 80, but with good health, not bad health, because the aging process will be controlled through CRISPR technology. So it gets to the fact that we'll be able to live, and certainly our children will be able to live potentially forever within the next decade or two. So worth engaging with. I hope you have a lovely week and month ahead, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.